Assalamu alaikum. Good day. Why gender inequality still persists in South Asian societies or Arab societies or elsewhere in the world. And this is a deeply historical and culturally layered topic. First, we'll talk about why people in the past, especially in South Asia and Arab societies, had many children and why having a boy was particularly celebrated based on economic, social, and cultural factors. So, common reasons across societies for having many children were high infant mortality rate in both South Asia and Arab world. Before modern medicine, many children died young due to disease, malnutrition, or poor sanitation. Families had more children hoping some would survive. And then there was lack of social security. There were no pensions, retirement funds, or state support systems. Children, especially sons, were the only safety net for old age. More children is more future support. And that is what you still observe in poverty-stricken classes of the South Asia. The poverty-stricken people of South Asia, they still have many children so that they would support their parents when they grow up. Then labor and livelihood. In agrarian societies, children were considered economic assets. By the age of 7 or 8, they helped in farms, herding, household work, or trade. More children meant more hands to work. And then it was also a religious and cultural duty. Large families were seen as a blessing from God, a sign of prosperity, virility, and social strength. Religious teachings often emphasized procreation as a virtue. Then there was family name, tribe, and legacy. Sons were especially seen as carriers of family lineage or tribal name. More children meant stronger clans, more political alliances, and survival of the name. Maybe this still holds true. Now we'll talk about the Arab perspective. Why more children? Why sons? In ancient Arab societies, children, especially boys, strengthened tribal power and military defense. Sons could fight, lead raids, and protect the tribe. Daughters were sometimes seen as a burden due to their fear of dishonor, tribal revenge, or economic strain, leading to the tragic practice of female infanticide, which Islam later condemned. Islam condemned infanticide, encouraged love for both daughters and sons, and redefined family honor and equality. However, patriarchal tribal norms persisted. So sons continued to be preferred for reasons like carrying the father's name, being protectors of women, social status, and continuity of lineage. Now I talk about this from a South Asian perspective. Why many children and why sons? Joint family and agricultural system. South Asia was largely agrarian. Land required labor, more sons is equal to more cultivation is equal to more wealth. Daughters married and joined the husband's family, but sons stayed and supported parents. Then there were some religious and cultural beliefs. In Hinduism, only sons can light the funeral pyre of parents, especially the father. It was believed that without a son, one's soul would not attain moksha, that is liberation. In Muslim families too, though less ritualistic, sons carried lineage and property. Caste and honor systems. The patrilineal structure required boys to uphold family name, manage property, and protect family. That is the izzat. Daughters were seen as financial burdens due to dowry practices, limited inheritance rights, and their departure after marriage. Then there was this political and dynastic power. In ruling families, sons were heirs to thrones or jagirs. More sons, more power, alliances, and succession security. Now the point is, Why this still echoes today. Modern medicine reduced child mortality, but the social mindset around sons versus daughters persisted, especially in rural and traditional households. Even today, in parts of South Asia and Arab world, sons are expected to care for parents. Families still say a daughter is someone else's wealth. Selective abortion and gender bias still occurs in some areas. Why sons were valued more in the past. A century ago, in agrarian and tribal societies across South Asia and Arab world, sons were deeply valued not just due to cultural preferences but because of harsh material realities. These realities rooted in survival, economy and lack of infrastructure laid the foundation of the patriarchal system we see remnants of today. At the heart of society was agriculture, animal husbandry, or other physically demanded forms of labor. Boys were seen as strong, reliable contributors to the family's survival, capable of plowing fields, herding livestock, and protecting property. In contrast, girls were not allowed or expected to do such work, often due to cultural restrictions on mobility, but also because of lack of health care and women's poor health. Women faced repeated pregnancies, unsafe deliveries, and nutritional neglect. Without proper maternal health care or rest, many women were chronically anemic, weak, or ill, not by nature but due to circumstance. This biological exhaustion was wrongly interpreted as proof of men's superiority in strength and productivity, reinforcing the notion that males were more useful to the family and society. Childbirth was surrounded by superstition and spiritual beliefs. A boy's birth was often seen as a divine blessing or a sign of family strength. A girl's birth, in contrast, could be viewed as karmic debt, bad luck, or financial liability. In patrilocal traditions, common in both South Asia and Arab societies, daughters were considered pariah dhan, someone else's future responsibility. Sons, on the other hand, stayed with the parents, worked with their land, inherited property, and ensured financial and physical security in old age. Most traditional inheritance laws, whether under Hindu, Islamic, or customary tribal law, favored sons, further institutionalizing their value. The family name, assets, and clan identity were all passed through the male line. With no legal systems or policing in many areas, male strength was protection from rival tribes, dacoits, or land disputes. Sons meant safety. Daughters required protection, further deepening the belief that men are assets, women are dependents. And thus, patriarchy took root. These interconnected forces, economic hardship, weak public health systems, myths, and gendered inheritance laws, created a world where men were seen as providers and protectors, women were seen as burdens or liabilities, families rejoiced at the birth of sons, while daughters were mourned, hidden, or even discarded. Over time, these attitudes became normalized, moralized, and passed down as cultural truth. This deeply unjust system wasn't just cultural, it was built on scarcity, fear, and survival. Patriarchy then wasn't simply about male dominance, it was a product of structural inequality, poor healthcare, economic need, and centuries of unchecked social norms. Understanding this context helps us challenge today's gender bias with empathy and clarity. Sons weren't more valuable by nature, they were shaped by a system that failed everyone, especially women. With better education, healthcare, and equality, we can undo these old scripts and rebuild more balanced societies. Now, I will tell you how modern life exposed the truth. Women were always equal. For centuries, patriarchal societies falsely believed that men were stronger, more capable, and therefore more valuable. But this belief was not rooted in truth. It was built on ignorance, hardship, and lack of access. Now, in the age of modern healthcare, technology, and mechanization, the illusion is breaking down. And we are finally seeing what was always true. Women were never less, they were only suppressed. Now, healthcare is breaking the cycle of exhaustion and death. In the past, women bore the burden of repeated childbirth with no prenatal care, nutrition, or rest. Many died young or became chronically weak, not because they were inherently fragile, but because society didn't support them. Today, with access to hospitals, maternal care, family planning, and better nutrition, women no longer live at the mercy of nature or tradition. They can choose when and how to give birth or not at all. Their energy, intelligence, and strength can now flourish, not just survive. Mechanization. When muscle power stopped mattering, for centuries physical labor was the measure of a person's worth. Fields needed plowing, water needed fetching, wood needed chopping. This manual world favored male bodies. But with tractors, washing machines, electric stoves, running water, and transportation, the physical divide shrunk overnight. In today's world, a laptop matters more than a plow. And in that world, gender is irrelevant. Skill, not strength, defines contribution. Computerized living, intelligence, creativity, and leadership rise. We now live in a knowledge economy, whether it's coding, designing, teaching, managing, healing, or leading. Intellect, empathy, and innovation are the new currencies of power. And here, women are excelling, not because they've changed, but because the world finally stopped limiting them. From universities to boardrooms, clinics to classrooms, they are reclaiming space that was always theirs by right. Patriarchy was never truth, it was just the norm. Patriarchy lasted not because women were weak, but because the systems could not see. The absence of healthcare, the burden of childbirth, the need for muscle, and the lack of education masked the brilliance of half the population. Now, with the veils of survival lifted, it is clear women were always equal, the world simply refused to see it. A new world is possible as technology frees us from physical burdens and knowledge becomes our greatest resource. Equality is no longer a dream, it's a natural outcome. But this transformation must be protected, expanded, and made universal, especially in South Asia and other regions still caught between past and present. Let us never again confuse lack of opportunity with lack of ability. Let us never again measure a human being's worth by outdated roles because now we know strength is not just in muscles and value is not just in sons. Is rejoicing a son and mooning a daughter in our genetic memory? No, it's not genetic memory. But it can feel like it because the weight of deep-rooted cultural conditioning, historical trauma, and inherited beliefs often passes through generations like a shadow. It's inherited fear, it's not memory. Rejoicing over sons and mourning over daughters is not written in our DNA. It's written into our stories, customs, social hierarchies, and economic history. What feels natural in South Asia or the Arab world is often just old survival logic that hasn't been updated, passed down through language. बेटी तो बोझ होती है, लड़का तो सहारा है. Proverbs, बेटे के बगैर चिराग नहीं जलता, बेटी तो पराया धन है. Folklore and films, religious misinterpretations, inheritance systems and property laws, generational trauma of colonization, poverty and violence. This repetition becomes so normal that people start believing this is how we are, when in truth it's how we were made to be by centuries of unjust systems. Now the question is why we still haven't come out of it. Even though girls are just as capable, and today's world proves it more clearly than ever, the old mindset survives because it's convenient for the power structures. Here's why change is slow. Social status is still tied to sons. In many families, a son's success means pride, protection, and property. A daughter's success often belongs to another family after marriage. Until this idea changes, sons will be investments and daughters seen as temporary. Control over women equals control over honor. In both South Asian and Arab cultures, a woman's body is often seen as carrying the family's honor. This means stricter control over her behavior, clothes, choices, and a subconscious fear that having a daughter is a risk. And then there is marriage economics, dowry, wedding costs, and the pressure to marry her off well still haunt many families. Even when illegal, the economic strain of having a daughter still plays on the minds of the poor and the middle classes. Then there is lack of role models in rural narratives. Urban girls may be scientists, pilots, and CEOs, but rural and conservative communities still don't see these stories. Instead, their imagination is shaped by old tales and local gossip, not progress. And the religious misuse. Sacred texts never devalued girls, but religious patriarchy twisted interpretations to fit male interests, and communities continue to follow culture in the name of faith. Despite this, the truth is breaking through. Girls top exams across South Asia. Women are running businesses, hospitals, and even countries. The modern world is made for minds, not muscles, and girls are proving that their minds are just as sharp, creative, and powerful. They always were. The system just never gave them the stage. So no, this bias is not in our blood. It's in our unquestioned habits, unhealed fears, and outdated systems. And once we begin to name it, challenge it, and teach our children differently, the illusion begins to break. Because daughters aren't burdens, they are futures, stories, leaders waiting to be believed in. Since we are on a different place on the timeline, we've moved ahead. How can we gently and wisely educate others, family, community, or audience that girls and boys are now equal, using methods that don't create resistance but instead open hearts? Let's start with empathy and not anger. If you want people to truly listen, begin where they are. Understand that their beliefs may come from fear, pain, or tradition, not cruelty. Say things like, I used to think this way too, but now I've seen girls do things I never imagined. I just can't see them as less anymore. Use stories and not just arguments. Facts change minds, but stories change hearts. Share real examples of girls doing amazing things, especially from within your own culture or community. Do you know who the first female fighter pilot was? And do you know about the girl who opened her own coding school in the village? My friend's daughter is now the one supporting their entire family. Tie these stories to values your audience already respects: resilience, loyalty, intelligence, faith. Use media they trust. Show them TV shows or films where strong girls are respectful, not rebellious. YouTube videos of successful Muslim or South Asian women. Short voiceovers that tie daughters to hope, not shame. Create bite-sized reflections with visuals they can relate to. Cooking, family, home life while slipping in deeper truth, as I do. Then use questions instead of preaching. Instead of saying you're wrong, ask, If we educate our sons and not our daughters, who will raise the next generation? If girls can earn, support, and protect now, why do we still treat them like they're weak? Let them walk toward the truth. That's more powerful than dragging them to it. Make it about the family, not just the girl. Sometimes elders listen better when you frame it as a benefit to the whole family. If we raise both daughters and sons equally, we'll have double the strength, double the support. A daughter can be your best helper, best friend, and your old age security just like a son. And let's be the example. If you show love, confidence, and pride in the girls in your life, people will feel the difference. Celebrate daughters' achievement publicly. Involve girls in family decisions. Let boys see their sisters as capable equals. Children mirror what they see. If you normalize it in your home, they'll carry it into the world. Repeat gently, patiently, constantly. Changing centuries of bias takes time. Even one small shift is progress. Keep repeating your message in different ways, softly, wisely, without losing hope. The truth doesn't need to be forced. It just needs to be shown again and again until the ignorance fades. Your voice matters, your storytelling matters, and your audience, even if they resist, hears you more than you think. Changing family living patterns can heal gender bias. In the past, especially in South Asia, families were structured around survival. Sons were preferred not out of hatred for daughters, but because old parents needed a male breadwinner to stay close and support them. Healthcare was poor and many children didn't survive. So families had many children hoping some sons would live and care for them. Patriarchal customs made daughters belong to another home after marriage. But now things have changed thanks to better healthcare, financial independence, and urban living. Parents are more secure in old age. They don't need to live with their children. They just want to live near them, emotionally and physically. If a daughter can live next door and be just as emotionally present, if a son can live far away and still only call on weekends, then what really matters is who shows up with love, not gender. The science of connection. Now, this is very important. Mother's mitochondria and microchimerism. Now, this is something scientific which I'm going to tell you about. Now, let's go deeper into the biology of parent-child bonds, which beautifully proves that gender never defined connection. Mitochondria, the energy source in every cell of the body, come only from the mother. That means every child, boy or girl, carries their mother's cellular life force in every breath they take. Microchimerism is a powerful biological fact. When a child grows in the mother's womb, a few of their cells remain in her body forever, and a few of her cells remain in the child too. This creates a silent permanent bond beyond just blood, it's shared existence. So even if both parents contribute equally to DNA, a mother and child are literally interwoven in a living, breathing bond. This makes the idea that only sons stay close not only outdated but biologically wrong. When we accept that children, regardless of gender, can be caregivers, companions, and emotional anchors, when we let daughters stay close without expecting sons to carry the entire weight of family honor, then we are not only being fair, we are being wise. The future is not sons versus daughters. The future is who is loving, kind, present, and willing to walk beside us regardless of gender. In the end, the preference for sons and the quiet sidelining of daughters are not truths etched in stone. They are relics of a time shaped by survival, limited healthcare, manual labor, and social insecurity. Today, with education, healthcare, and opportunities opening up for all, the foundations of these old beliefs are crumbling. But change won't come with facts alone. It must come with reflection, compassion, and storytelling. It must come by showing our elders and our communities that girls are not burdens but brilliant lights long kept in the shadows. When we give our daughters the same wings we give our sons, in education, in choices, in respect, we don't just build equality, we recover the genius we've lost for generations. And only then will our families, our cultures, and our futures be whole. Thank you. Have a nice day. Make life easy for others.